Good morning, SF. We are here with Alice Shikina, and she is going to talk to us today about the Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center. So, Alice, what can you tell us about their mission?
So they really do a great job of helping people all over the peninsula in the Bay Area. So they offer mediations for people who need mediations. They offer restorative justice programs for kids in school. They also help juvenile offenders stay out of jail. They have another conflict transformation program that I'm a part of. I'm one of their conflict transformation instructors, and we go into the jails and teach basically, I mean, we call it conflict transformation, but it's like communication 101. So it's all the basics of communication, how to properly communicate to the incarcerated so that they can have an improved life while they're there, as well as beyond when they get out of jail. Hopefully it will keep some of them out of jail because they're relying more heavily on their communication skills rather than their, fighting skills or what have you when they get out. They do a lot of work with businesses. They do a lot of trainings with people who are in business, as well as partner with various cities on the peninsula to do facilitated meetings. So for example, a city like San Mateo may want to find out what their citizens think about the new housing projects that they're planning or the traffic changes. And so we show up as facilitators and help put together a program where about 100 of the citizens come to the table and they give their feedback, and that feedback is directly given back to city council members so that they can use that data in order to implement and plan for future projects. So they do a lot of different work on every single level.
So the incarcerated group that you're working with, this is youth, correct?
I am one of the instructors. So there are several of us who are instructors, and the program is a 10-week program. So it's once a week for, I believe it's an hour and a half. So we go into the jails and then we do the training. So pre-COVID, I would go there and I would be in a conference room with about 20 incarcerated men and deliver the programming. Post-COVID, we did a couple different things. Right now it's just on hold, but previously I would go to the jail and sit by myself in a conference room, and they would Zoom in from a different conference room in the same building. And they probably had about 6 people in one room and 6 people in another room for a total of 12. We just had fewer numbers because they didn't want to put everybody into one room. And so the reason why they had me going into the jail as opposed to Zooming from my own home was just to protect, my security and my safety. So they brought me into a conference room where everything is sort of neutral and there's no sort of identifying information about where I live.
And how does this differ than sort of your normal mediation work? How, I'm assuming this is different.
It's very, very different. Yes. So the instructors have to do a day-long training. And even though, okay, well, that sounds like great, anyone can do it. Most of the people who do the day-long training already have a 40-hour mediation certification, so that we're already pretty advanced in communication skills. So the curriculum has already been built out for us by PCRC, Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center. And so they just they train us in the curriculum one day and then give us that curriculum, and I just go in and I teach it. But because I'm already a trained mediator, I'm able to take all that skill set and translate it into my lesson planning. So if they have random questions or they go off topic or they want to dive even deeper than what's in the curriculum, I can handle all those questions because I'm already a trained mediator. I think it would be much more difficult if we took people who are not trained in mediation skills and give them a curriculum, because then they would really just know the surface. The curriculum is really to use as a framework, but then my own knowledge and skill set as a mediator definitely come into play when I'm teaching the class.
And these are to help these individuals develop skills that they can use on the outside.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
And how long has the program been running?
That program, so it started a long time ago and it was always informal. So it was never an actual program that was run by PCRC for many, many years. I think like 12 years. And it was just a lot of the volunteers feeling like, hey, we have the skill set, we're mediators and we have a connection. The connection was that at the time, the sheriff was one of the board members. And so really, in order for other organizations to implement something like this, they need to have a connection inside the whole jail system. And because there was a sheriff that was on the board, they were able to get that approved fairly quickly. And the sheriff had the, ins and outs to say, talk to this person, talk to that person to get the programming done. And then I feel like maybe 8 years ago, I don't have the numbers, but I think around 8 years ago, they formalized it into an actual program. And they've been doing this, since then, where they have actual trained facilitators, instructors go in and teaching the class.
And have they seen a reduction in reentry, or sort of people coming back into the system? What are some of the impacts of having this program?
What's really interesting is not only has it improved their lives while they're in jail, they also become kind of like mediators themselves inside the jail cell, because of the fact that the people who take the class learn these skills. They implement those skills in order to help other people who are involved in conflict, right? Because most conflict can be resolved verbally if you understand the strategies and the tactics, right, of negotiation, mediation, and that sort of thing. Most of those people who are in jail don't have very good communication skills, which is why it landed them in jail to begin with, right? They may have started off with a verbal altercation and it escalated into something physical, and then the cops were called and then they went to jail. So once they sort of become like the mediators inside the jail and they help other people. And then once they go out into the real world, of course, it helps them as well. And, even many of them have reported that they have better communication with their children and their spouses while they're in jail because they're talking to them on the phone. And so one of them commented that he used to fight with his wife all the time on the phone. And after he started taking the class, he learned how to listen. Like, he really improved his listening skill. He conscientiously tried to listen more because he knew that that's what he was studying in the class. And he came back and reported that the fights were all down. Like, he didn't really fight with her any longer. And that his wife even said, I want to talk to you every day because we're having such a good conversation.
Nice.
It definitely helps.
You mentioned restorative justice. Can you talk about that program a little bit?
So a lot of the things, what they do, I'm not very familiar with that program because I'm not involved in it, but I know a little bit about restorative justice. And it's basically a type of a process or procedure whereby people who are guilty of something and they've victimized somebody, could be in the school system, they sit together and they actually talk about what kind of harm was done, what the action of this person A, how that harmed person B talks about how it felt to them, so that there's a larger understanding. So it's very anti-punitive, and it's more about getting to deeper understanding of each other so that the person who did the harm actually understands what they did to someone else. And that deeper understanding really starts to facilitate, people feeling empathy towards the person that they hurt. And that way they can apologize, or they can say, I'm really sorry, I didn't really mean to do that. And just have a deeper understanding. As opposed to one where when there's harm done to someone else, there's a punishment that's delivered and there's no conversation and there's no interaction between the two people. So this actually brings them together with the facilitator. Usually it's a restorative justice trained facilitator to talk about what was done. And so this is something that, is frequently done in some of the schools.
And some of the other services that the program offers. So do they offer services, mediation services to low economic individuals to assist them?
Yes, they do. They do a lot with the housing. So landlord tenant things, neighborly mediations, right? Where maybe the next door neighbor is making too much noise, or a lot of tree mediations where people say, hey, your tree is too tall, you have to cut it down, you're blocking my view, or it's dropping all the leaves and branches and you need to clean it up, or what have you. There are a lot of things like
damn
that.
Trees.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm actually very familiar with the tree argument.
So they help with those. So people typically just call PCRC and say, hey, I've got some conflict. We need some help with the mediator. And then they have a large group of volunteer mediators And so what they do is they will assign the mediation case to a mediator, and the mediator goes and mediates that. So what they do is they have a large group of volunteers for mediation, for facilitation, for the conflict transformation. So all of the things are volunteer positions. And so PCRC basically creates all these different programs that help the community. And then they also collect a large group of people who would like to volunteer to help the community and brings those two together, right? So I am a volunteer conflict transformation teacher or instructor. So all my time that I give to that program is volunteer, and it's usually a 10-week program. Typically, like one person will do the whole 10-week program, but lately I was not able to do all 10. And so I basically co-led with another teacher. And so we alternated weeks.
And what do you look for in volunteers?
They have several trainings that they offer. So for example, if someone wants to become a mediator, PCRC has a 40-hour mediator certification course. So then someone has to be certified. So I actually got certified through the San Francisco Bar Association. So I showed up and I was introduced by someone else, a mutual acquaintance. So there,
Power of networking.
Yes, yes. And so if I wanted to mediate for them, I could probably just let them know, hey, put me on your list of volunteers. But I actually already volunteer significantly for them as a facilitator and also as a conflict transformation. I can't say that word, transformation instructor. And so I am not one of their volunteer mediators. But, when I wanted to become an instructor, they said, okay, great, but you need to sign up for this one-day course. So yes, they look for certain things. However, most of the things that you volunteer for, you actually have to get trained in order to volunteer.
And what has surprised you most about working with the program?
The level of like how deeply they touch the community, like in every way, like all the way from families who have small children, all the way to like kids who are going to the juvenile system, to businesses and people who are starting businesses, school kids, people who are in the jails. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they really, really outreach to every single sector in the peninsula. So the roots that they have there and the number of touch points that they have there and the number of programs that they have there is really quite amazing. It's stunning to me.
And is one of the programs to help people navigate, the government agencies and mediate sort of discussions with the government agencies, such as child services and things like that?
That I'm not sure about, but yeah, we definitely have a lot of talks with government agencies. Like, for example, I was facilitating, and it's a small group facilitation. So it's not just me. Usually there are 10 or 12 facilitators and we sit at a table. And so I will have maybe 5 to 8 people that I'm facilitating talks with. But Half Moon Bay, I believe it was, had a lot of different traffic changes they were making. So they wanted to know, do you want a traffic circle? Do you want a crosswalk? Do you want a bridge that goes over the street? And, and what do you feel about the traffic in Half Moon Bay? And so all the citizens came together with the city council members, and the city council members, this was not like a city council meeting where they are the ones doing the talking. They were the ones doing the listening. They would pop into the different groups, and when it was in person, they would sit at our table briefly and listen in. They were not speaking. They were there simply to listen to the citizenry. And currently they'll pop in and out of Zoom rooms. And so people will say, you know what, the Half Moon Bay traffic is terrible, or, we think it's a waste of time to do a traffic circle. Don't do that. We'd like for you to do a crosswalk, or we want you to have a street light instead. And so they gave very direct feedback, and that feedback went directly into the planning process.
So this gives the citizens a voice in the decision process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really fantastic.
And what about, do they get involved with family issues?
Yes, they help young families who have little kids and babies, and they definitely help. They have programs to help with them as well. Okay. I'm not super familiar with them, but I do know that they have programs to help new families.
And what has been the biggest benefit for you as a participant in this, as a volunteer?
So I really feel like I really enjoy the conflict transformation that I'm doing. That work is really, really interesting to me. Um, to hear about the justice system and to be actually interacting with the justice system are two different things, right? And you can learn quite a bit. And it's always been my view that the victimizers who are in jail were always victims before they became victimizers. So to be able to go in, to be able to help them, give them some value that they can take away and perhaps change their lives by not becoming, having recidivism where they come back into jail again and again and
Right.
to change their lives that way, is really powerful work. To be able to go into those classes with no judgment about who I'm teaching, who these people are, what they've done, what kind of crime they've committed, but to just see them as people, just like me and you. They've come upon hard luck. They've made some very bad decisions, which landed them where they were, but to just be able to have empathy and compassion for them, just like you would, another, maybe like a business acquaintance or whatnot. So I think that is, for me, really the biggest value.
And how do you take that to sort of your day-to-day mediation? Like, does it carry over, or do you like find yourself like, oh, this is what we did here, we can do this here?
A lot of the communication skills that I teach, I actively use in mediations. And so it's more that a lot more of the mediation skills are carried over into my teaching as opposed to vice versa, right? Because the men that I teach are sort of at the basic level of communication. We're just now learning how to actively listen. We're just now learning how to mirror people. And so I do a lot deeper dive of those same skills and strategies when I'm mediating. So it's not so much that it goes from the teaching to the mediation, but it's more from the mediation to the teaching.
And basically, these folks just really haven't had a chance to experience this. They didn't have the education or the resources to learn these skills previously.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Great. Well, we very much appreciate you spending some time with us today and sharing your work. We think it's some really exciting stuff. We will get this up on the blog and send you a link. Thank you for talking with us, and we look forward to hearing from you again in the future.
Thanks so much for having me, Mike. And definitely I encourage your listener to check out Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center online, and they can see all the different programs that are offered. If they are interested in becoming a volunteer, they can reach out, but I believe it's like PCRCweb.org.
Yeah, we'll put it in the notes below. So
thanks so much for having me, Mike. This is awesome.
Great to see you. All right, thank you.
All right, bye.